we're talking cover songs, and but what about cover songs for? I mean, this is you have a new lead singer who's replicating Firefall songs. How do you choose a lead singer? Is it someone who sounds exactly like someone from the '70s, or someone who brings his own style to Firefall? Who kind of does that mix up the chemistry? How do you choose a lead singer when you need one?
When you need one. When Mark Andes retired 2 months before this album, and frankly, this album was kind of a lot about Mark because he played with Dan Fogelberg and he played with Hart and he, and just, but he got sick of touring and said, I'm done. I'm retiring. And David Muse, our sax flute keyboard player, he died about a year and a half ago from his fourth bout with cancer. And Jim Waddell, who's the guy now, the sax flute player now, is really great and has been available. And it's been really lucky about how, this kind of new batch of guys. I mean, Sandy's been drummer with us for 30 years. I've been in the band since 74. Steve Weinmeister's a great singer. As leader of the band and the guy, when somebody quits when I fire somebody and I have to replace a lead singer, I gave up a long time ago having the guy have to sound like Rick Roberts. Rick has a pretty unique voice. And unfortunately, he can't sing like that anymore. He's got health issues and really can't perform. And I really tried to find somebody that sounded like Rick in the 80s and all that. And I realized that if you've got a really good, really great lead vocalist, and even if he doesn't sound like Rick Roberts, he's going to be a good enough vocalist to sell those songs to the people listening to and so if you sound like the record off stage for people who are spending a lot of bucks to come hear you play, that's going to be okay. I didn't, when John Bisaha became available, and I met him, and he's a good bass player, but he is a world-class singer. One of the things that John Bisaha did, he was for 10 years in the touring theatrical play of Jesus Christ Superstar, and he was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And he sang all those, he's a great vocalist. I mean, world-class. And I mean, Firefall's always had good vocalists, and particularly Rick and Larry, who wrote their songs that were so great on our first three albums. That stuff is great, but I have never had a guy in Firefall that was like an LA, rock singer, man. And, like for instance, when we were trying to pick the Heart song or the Fleetwood Mac song, with girls in the band, he said, no problem. And if you're a good enough singer, you can sell it, So that's my answer. And the blend we've got now with Steven and John, I'm the third singer and I allowed myself to sing 3 songs on this album. But when we were cutting background vocals, I would just put them out there and trade parts and double that and triple that. And hey, let's make, you'd make it sound great.
That makes What About Love sound like a more obvious choice now, because I wouldn't have thought that would have been the choice of Heart songs.
Right. And the interesting thing is I'm good friends with Howard Leese, the original guitar player, keyboard player in Heart, member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And for the last 10 years, he's been with Bad Company and why can't I think of his name? From Free and Bad Company, Paul Rogers.
Paul Rogers, yeah.
One of the best singers ever, So I asked Howard if he wanted to play the solo on What About Love, play some power guitars in the solo. And he said, that's great. Sure. Thanks. And I sent him, our version of that, which we deliberately tried to make as we were recording it. It really sounded like very reminiscent of Strange Way from 1978. So we played that up with the flute and the boom, 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 the bass part and all that. So Howard got back to me from LA and said, well, you kind of changed the chords in the chorus, so I can't play the same solo that I did on the original. I went, I don't want you to play the same solo that you did on the original. This is a new version. Play something else. And he played a great solo. And I ended up learning his solo verbatim and playing it with my sound, and made a second track of Howard playing with the different amp sound. And we made 3 guitars sound like one huge one, but that's Howard's solo and choice of notes. And it felt great to have some guest stars on this record, like John Jorgensen, from Desert Rose Band and Elton John's band, one of the best guitar players on the planet. He played on our Bird song. And Tristan Bowden, the drummer, played on Simple Man from Chicago and the Kenny Loggins band. So it's been really fun, and we're excited about continue it going, because we scratched the surface really nicely with these 13 songs, but we left out some songs, and there's a lot more on the board, and we're cutting a few more. And some people might go, Firefall's playing cover songs. It's like, no, look at it this way. We're honoring the 70s and those bands that had those great songs.